Hello, my name is Jeff Grote. I'm here today for episode 9 of The Roar and the Reason, the Lion's Share Company podcast. Joined today by Graeme Rees. Graeme is the Global EcoXpert Leader for Schneider Electric. Graeme, welcome aboard. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jeff, and thanks for inviting me along. Feels a real privilege to be here. I've seen the other episodes, and kind of an ambition of mine to be on board. So it's terrific to be with you.
Well, you're our first global guest. This is our first remote telecast that we're trying out, and I think this is our new format. We're hoping to stay with this format. And Graeme, you are out of Southampton, UK, or do we just call it England? What would you prefer?
Either's fine, Jeff. Yeah, Southampton born and bred. So yeah, and I'm home at the moment. The miracles of this technology allows us to do this. So it's amazing, really, isn't it?
COVID didn't, obviously a lot of bad things came from COVID, but the one good thing came from COVID is our ability to work remotely and what we're capable of doing through communication. It's so much better than what it was prior to COVID and acceptable as well, socially acceptable. Yeah.
Absolutely, and incredible, really. Just this morning we were on a call with India. This afternoon, here I am with you. You know, you're in the US. Tomorrow morning, we're talking to Australia. Just a few years ago, that would have been impossible. We wouldn't have even thought about it, would we? It would just be
No, we
just
wouldn't.
under.
And tell me a little bit about yourself, Graeme. This is so exciting to have you. So I know you're with Schneider Electric. I know you're on the global team. Uh, Tell us what we
Yeah.
don't know.
So I think a little like you, Jeff. I've been in the controls industry for some time. You know, when sort of preparing a few notes for this, it was a little scary to think, my goodness me, it's over 35 years, 36 years, something like that in controls. A lot of the time, I started off with system integrator businesses, but then moved to the UK business, the Trend business in the UK. So Trend Controls became part of Honeywell in 2005, I think.
Mhm.
Honeywell acquired Trend. They acquired Novar Controls not far from you, the Allerton business in the US. So that whole group, the whole Novar group, were acquired by Honeywell in 2005. I was a little under 20 years with that group, but joined Schneider in 2018, which has just been terrific. To be honest, it's been super energizing. The partners, the staff, the team, the whole sort of ethos around Schneider is just terrific. It's really energizing. My first role was in the UK. That was to lead the marketing team. With my background, it was primarily to give a boost to the partner business there in the UK, which was great and successful. I then moved into a European role, similar sort of channel development type activity, and now yeah, almost a year, just over a year actually, a year in this global eco expert role with responsibility for the buildings badges, and yeah, brings me in fairly regular contact with you, Jeff, which is a delight.
Well, and I was going to say one of the reasons I know you, and is I've got the privilege of sitting on a global board in which you are directing that board and you're spearheading our calls and doing a great job. And we are tackling some issues. And I will tell you, Graham, maybe it's a blessing that somebody like you came from Trend and didn't start off at Schneider for all these years. And now you have the ability to bring something new with you. And to be very honest, for years, the partners did not feel as if Schneider Electric was listening to them. And I can
Right.
sit here and tell you today, I just got off a call an hour ago, and it was with another global team talking about deliveries and trying to work through some of the challenges that they face, but they're engaging us directly. We have constant communication. And Graham, I'll tell you, it's changed quite a bit over the years because now, if somebody was to ask me, is Schneider listening? I would say to a great extent they're listening. And it's not one person, it's multiple people. It's teams of people that are trying to work with us to make things better. I
Right.
would be
Yeah,
remiss. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
that's great to hear, Jeff. You know, there's always more we can do. You know, one of the differences with Schneider to the Trend business, for example, is we do have branch business, we got direct business, and we have partner business, and we kind of proved with some of the actions in the UK, it's possible to grow both side by side, with limited, if any, overlap or challenges. But there's lots to do because the whole logistics around the business, always there's always something that comes up that needs to be overcome or fixed or resolved. But it's great to hear that things are improving. That's very positive.
They certainly are. And I would be remiss not to mention this telecast is for the Lion's Share Company. The Lion's Share Company is an operating company. It's not a holding company. And it's a combination of 6 different companies. It's Wadsworth Service, Wadsworth Solutions, Wadsworth Energy, Wave Electric, Warner Mechanical, and Imperial Mechanical. Now totaling over 300 people, multiple offices throughout the state of Ohio. And like I said, I'd be remiss not to mention that. But hey, let's get into the nuts and bolts here. I guess first question for you, with all your experience, now you got 35 years, I got 30 years. Buildings have changed, and buildings continue to change. And it's not necessarily the construction of a building as much as the usage of buildings and what people expect from them. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face, or the immediate challenges that you face, or we face, Graeme, when it comes to digital buildings?
Yeah, I think some of those challenges, Jeff, you mentioned some of the things. If we wind the clock back, let's say, what was once put into a building and what was expected of the building, perhaps when you and I started out, is significantly different today. Largely systems were put in that were proprietary. The protocols were owned by the big manufacturers and so on. Things I remember many colleagues and more senior people to me when I started out was, Graeme, this is a very slow, they're like dinosaurs in this industry. It's very, very, very slow to change. Yes. My goodness me, how different are things now? The pace of change is just dramatic. And all of those things I mentioned, we've got open protocols. We're on IT networks. Our engineers are expected to be IT experts just as much as they are control experts, and it's just the rapid change. We're more into a rate of change in our industry that we expect and we see from IT. So it's never before have we seen so much change. But with that comes an enormous amount of benefit when we see what clients can. The value that clients can get from their systems now compared to the old days, and the volume of data that enables this, it's just dramatic. It's chalk and cheese. But they do, that does come with challenges. It comes with challenges around cyber security. There's a number of examples here in the UK where ransom threats have been made. Big businesses have practically ground to a halt because of cyber attacks and so on. Mm-hmm. So we have to be absolutely on our game when it comes to cyber security and being sure our systems are protected. But equally, with this rate of change comes a greater expectation. End user customers now expect more from their buildings. And one of the things it kind of frustrates me in a way, the better we do our job, the less noticeable it is. If you're a wonderful painter or a first-class architect or carpenter or something, the fruits of their labour are there to be enjoyed and seen. When we do our job really, really well, mm-hmm. People don't notice because they're perfectly comfortable. They walk into a building, the temperature's just right, the humidity's just right, the lights come up, maybe the sun blinds tilt. They don't notice because everything is just right. They only notice, sadly, when we get it wrong and things are not quite good. So, the expectations are very, very high, but this is all around the volume of data that we can now see and use and put to value in our systems. So, Jeff, a lot of this revolves, of course, around software. We talked about the data that the customers derive the value from, but they can only derive that value from the software, of course, and indeed the layers beneath. So it's a whole software world, really, from the underlying sort of database structures and platforms that bring the data together, and then of course how it's all presented on top. It's all software, but that's where we can really deliver value to the end clients.
Well, after you having 35 years in the business and me having 30 years in the business, never has software been so important, Graeme. Before, we just used it as a GUI, a graphical user interface, and that's really all we cared about when it came to software. Now, everything is so data-driven, and there's been this great convergence, and we're living this convergence right now of digital buildings and digital energy coming together. I'll give you an example here in Northwest Ohio. Within 60 miles, we have two hyperscalers being put in right now. Hyperscaler data centers, these huge multi-megawatt centers. And then let's not forget about the 300,000 just in the U.S. alone, but the 300,000 EVs going on the road every single day. I mean, every year. And then when you look at all that taxing our grid, taxing the amount of energy we have available, that's where the data becomes even more important, because we know that energy, we're going to face an energy crisis no matter how we look at this. It's inevitable. It's coming. We're not prepared for it. But the data that we're extracting from the building automation systems and how we're using that data is making us much more efficient, but it's given us that level of comfort that we literally know what's going on in the building. And we never had that comfort in the past.
No, exactly, and as I say, it's what delivers the value, and good software makes that even easier. It's similar in a way to what I said about when we do it very, very well, we're not even noticed. But I think it's the same with the way software presents the data, because if you have to if you need a master's degree to understand what the data's saying, we've got it wrong. But if you can instantly look at a dashboard or a user interface, and the software is clever enough to present that in a way to someone that's not connected, that maybe doesn't have the experience, but they can instantly see, this is what's going on, this is what might happen, this is what has happened, in whatever that scenario, that single view that is very, very easy to consume. Software, it's good software that delivers that.
So we've come to the conclusion that Schneider has good software, and we know that. And now moving forward, let's talk about partners. So there's over 3,000 partners worldwide. I've had the privilege of sitting, and this is my second term on the global advisory board, and getting a chance to meet a lot of these partners. And the similarities between us, regardless of the language that we speak and the alphabet that we use, at the end of the day, we're all really good integrators. Some are exceptional, some are great, and some are just good. And being a master system integrator or an integrator in general is so important. But to get to that point, you guys have come out with a measuring system. And this system to measure people's qualifications and deem them qualified, not qualified. You guys came out with something called badges. Why don't you tell me about the badge program?
Yeah, so the badge, the whole EcoXpert program, Jeff, as you say, there's something probably in excess of 3,000. But the badges are how we describe the particular disciplines. So, my background is building management systems, building automation. If I were to set up tomorrow, myself and Schneider would have me, my badge would be in building automation. And we've got other badges across all the various technical disciplines. So I know, Wadsworth, for example, are also a building security, access control. That's another badge. Mm-hmm. So some of the things, particularly when you talk about convergence, we like to see partners multi-badge. So like yourselves, you're building automation, your security with access control as a technical competence. We're seeing more and more convergence, particularly across Europe, in the Middle East as well, where building automation partners are picking up some of the power disciplines as well, the power management. And really where there's benefit to the end user clients, but also to the EcoXpert partners in multi-badging. You're already a trusted advisor in one of those disciplines. You've already got great customer relationships, be that with contractors or end users, and the ability to be able to spread that a little bit to other disciplines. All of those sort of hard-earned miles that have been trodden, um, the hard-earned miles that have been trodden in building those relationships and building the trust with the clients. It's then relatively easy to spread into those other disciplines with other resources. So across the program, we got about 15. I think it's 15 different badges. Those areas of expertise. I think because some integrators multi-badge. The last count, and I looked this up yesterday, 5,260 badges in the program.
Wow.
And globally, we span 151 countries. Now, as of today, that number's out of date because I've already approved a couple just this morning. But yeah, over 5,260 across the world. And some of those countries, when I looked them up, I had to double check and think, I didn't even know that that was a country. But it is truly global. And as I say, the multi-badge, that convergence is something that Schneider are super keen on encouraging, and looking for partners to really explore those additional areas that they can introduce to their customer base.
So I have to reiterate the fact that you guys just don't hand badges out. To get a badge, there's an effort involved. There's required training, a certain amount of product that has to be sold, at least to be a certified or a master, correct?
Yes, you're right.
Registered certified master. So you have to not only go out and get your people trained, there are requirements and steps that you have to take to obtain that badge. And
That's right.
you also have to keep the badge too. So it's
Exactly.
not get it once and then move on. It's a commitment each and every year. I mention that because we hold 4 badges, I believe. So obviously building automation, security, as you mentioned, and then critical power, which used to be, or secure power, it used to be critical power because we're ELDC APC representative for the last 14 years, and then PME. So we should also have a power monitoring badge as well. And you said there's 15 possible. I'd like to believe that typical is 1 or 2. I mean, you might get lucky to have some people with 3 and then maybe even 4, but multi-badge partners beyond 4, I think that's pretty difficult to get to.
No, that's quite unusual. You're right. Those that do multi-badge, you're right. It's 1 or 2, possibly 3. But yeah, more than that is quite unusual. And you're quite right to mention the levels. The structure, you see, the EcoXpert program and it being global, it provides structure in order to facilitate that global nature. So within, we do have the levels, as you say. So an entry level, if a partner business came along to join us, or we approached a potential partner business, they typically come on board as a registered partner. Mm-hmm. They don't carry the EcoXpert brand at that point. They're in the sort of early gestation period, let's say. We look for them to put people forward for training, as you mentioned. We'll train them up both commercially and technically. A couple of people typically. We'll work closely with them on the first 1 or 2 projects. And as business develops, potentially they can reach the point of certified, which, yes, there's a business threshold, but there's also an expectation on the count of engineers, the number of salespeople, the volume of business they do. And equally, as one moves up the levels, of which there are 3, so those benefits and rewards from the Schneider Electric program come in as well. So certified is the first level, the mid tier that warrants the EcoXpert branding, and then, like yourself, Jeff, master is at the top of the tree. That's where that's where we enjoy a very close relationship, and decent business and decent growth, which keeps us both happy. So those are the three levels. But equally, from an end user perspective, they can look at that program, and it's particularly important if you've got a very large international business. They may wish to, they may have facilities in the US, they may have facilities South America, maybe in the Middle East. They can look to different partners and understand the levels. If it's a fairly advanced application, okay, I might need a master partner in Dubai, let's say. Mm-hmm. They can look them up, and the structure enables that. that gives us some structure that everyone works within.
To be honest, even as a security master, we've been dragged around the country a few times and asked to help out with other partners and branches. And we've always said yes because we realize the importance of being a good steward of the community, right? I'm looking at the bigger picture here, Graeme. In episode 2, I talked about the sum. We talk about a partnership with Schneider Electric, and it's more like a family to me because there's not always, it's not like a dating and courting where everything is hunky-dory, right? There are times that we're not necessarily at odds, but we may not agree, but we're family. We talk about these things and we get to the next level, we get past these things, and that's very important. And it's important because when I look at, back to episode 2, I look at the structure of Schneider Electric. Johnson Controls and Siemens and Honeywell have worldwide branch offices that are owned by those particular manufacturers. Schneider, on the other hand, has done it a little bit differently, and they've gone to the market. Instead of having 250 branch offices in the United States, they have about 16 branch offices, but the rest are partners. There's over 200 and, well, I think it's around 198 partners now in the United States. And those 198 partners act as independently owned branch offices instead of corporate owned branch offices. But we carry a lot of the same responsibilities. We realize that it's a reciprocating relationship. And if Schneider comes to us like, hey, we need you to go take care of this, we take care of it because we're managing that dirt, that territory for them. And it's an incredible responsibility because, again, we're not a branch office, but we do feel in many ways like we're an independently owned branch office. So with that being described, I guess that was a pretty good segue. I transitioned into my last question, and that is, what is it that you guys look for in partners?
Well, it's a great. You mentioned a great point, Jeff, about the family, because that is exactly that's exactly as I see it, and partners is the key word. Really, it is exactly that. It's partnership. You know it, I know it. We're lucky enough to go to the Schneider events, and you're quite right. You know, there's partners from across the world, but the spirit, the atmosphere, the camaraderie, you know, it is as one. Really, it's difficult to describe. But you're also right. It's like family. It's like a marriage. It doesn't always run. You know, it doesn't run smooth all of the time. There's highs, there's lows, but we work through it. You know, and that could be either way. You know, hands up. And I think anyone from Schneider would say, you know, we don't get it right all the time. We mess up. You know, we mess up from time to time, and you know, we cause pain for our partners. But you know, we fight it out. You know, we work it out and we get through it and we sort it out because we are a partnership. That's exactly it. So. And you know, sometimes partners have a tough time as well, and we recognise that too and stand by them. And you know, just like a marriage, there's the rough and the smooth, and we move forward. At the end of the day, if we're delivering value to our our mutual sort of end user clients and customers, we're collectively growing. Business is good. It's terrific. So that, you know, we ride out the rough and we take the smooth. What we look for, of course, are some of those things. Some of those things I mentioned. We look for true partnership. I'm a bit, you know, I'm an English guy, as you already mentioned. I love my roses, and I got this analogy about the partners that I like to use. You know, where do the roses grow? I got to find the right patch to plant the roses. So I've got to look for the geography. You know, the geography's got to be right where the roses are going to grow. So we've got to find the right market, the right space. And as Schneider, you know, we will do some seed planting. You know, we'll plant the seeds, we'll tend to the garden, we'll nurture, we'll feed, and hopefully what will happen is, you know, a really robust rose will grow. Mm-hmm. At times, unfortunately, there's a need to do a little bit of weeding. You know, we might need to do some pruning from time to time, but that's only done, you know, to really encourage growth of that rose. And come the spring, come the summer, you know, we both enjoy, you know, some real beautiful blooms and scents, and you know, the garden's fantastic if it all works out well. So that's kind of a crazy analogy of what we
That's an
look for.
amazing analogy, actually. I really like that one. That's perfect.
But we're in business. At the end of the day, Jeff, we're both in business. We really look to align on objectives, on ambition, on growth. And one point I would make, probably my last point is, I think Schneider do a pretty good job of positioning the business around the sustainability message, the efficiencies and so on, electrification, digitalization, and so on. That's a message that Schneider put out a lot, and I think it's very impactful, and the business sees that. The partnership only works when we are aligned. If we're working with partners that are completely misaligned on some of those things, it's just not going to work. Like a marriage, if one's facing the other direction, it isn't going to work. So we look for alignment on that, and yeah, if we're both lined up and we're both growing, it's terrific.
Well, that reciprocation that you mentioned, that alignment. When I look at a marriage, it's never perfect, right? And boy, just ask me. I'll tell you, I've been married twice. I can assure you that it's not always perfect, but there is a responsibility on both parties involved in a relationship to do their best, to cooperate, to make that relationship work, and strive towards a common goal, is what I would say. But I also realize in a lot of relationships that we have, as partners, we have a responsibility to Schneider as well. I mean, it's not just Schneider having a responsibility to us, but we also have an obligation on our side, and that's to provide the best consistent, high quality service, installations, and representation as we can on a daily basis. Now, every partner falls short sometimes. If you tell me you had 100% happy customers, I would never agree with you, because it's just impossible to do that. It's human nature, right? But I do know that we have a responsibility in our relationship with Schneider to do the best job every single day that we possibly can as your representative, and we take that serious. I do want to ask you one question before I let you go, and I noticed that you're sitting over there in the UK, and I'm sitting here in Ohio, USA. We're both sipping from hot beverages. Mine's coffee. What was yours?
Mine's tea.
That was a
But
pretty
then
good
it would,
guess.
but then it would be, wouldn't it? The English guy.
Graham, I can't thank you enough, sir, for coming today and joining us. What a privilege to have you, and I mean that. And thank you. Your time is very, very valuable, and we appreciate what you do for us as a partner, and look forward to working with you many years to come in here in the future.
Thank you, Jeff. The privilege is all mine. I'm absolutely delighted to join you, and yeah, really pleased to take part. So thank you very much, and look forward to getting together whenever that might be.
Well, I'm hearing Europe in May, maybe.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed if everything works out well. And I always get a lot from our events. And next week I'm heading to Vegas, as we mentioned earlier, and I've got my schedule full from Sunday all the way to when I depart on Thursday. I've got sidebar meetings. I got other meetings. I take it serious when I go out there. Although it's Vegas and it's a lot of fun, we have a mission. We have a job to do, and we want to ensure that we show our clients that we're bringing with us the best possible Schneider Electric there is and the best possible time we can give them. But no, we appreciate Schneider on a daily basis. And Graeme, thank you, sir. And I can't wait to
Thank you,
work with
Jeff.
you over the next couple of years on a global board as well.
Absolutely. Well, enjoy Vegas. And just a little tip, we talked about convergence. There's going to be some big messages in Vegas. So I can say no more than that, but you heard it here first. Look out for that one. That's a big
I
one
can't
coming.
wait. This is exciting. Thank you,
Good,
sir.
good. Take care. Thanks very much.
Have a great day.